Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Suzette Speaks show. I have a very special guest with me today. His name is attorney Robert Patillo. You may have caught him on the Roland Martin Network or Black Star Network. He works a lot in civil rights. He is a storied, I would call him, journalist in his own right. You'll see him on MSNBC and other major news networks giving his political opinion. And I've invited him today because I feel like we need to talk a little bit more about the midterm elections. If you are a politico, if you don't know what's going on, this will hopefully be a helpful show so that you understand why it matters that you not only vote in the midterm elections, but you should know who is exactly running, especially if you're in Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and other crucial states. So, to explain a little bit more about what the midterm elections mean, I'm going to welcome my guest now, Mr. Patillo. How are you? Fresh out of a speaking engagement. How you doing, sir?
I am doing great, and you can actually probably hear the rest of the speaking engagement in the background. But I really appreciate this time that I have to speak with you.
Of course, as an attorney as well in Florida, I know you're up in Georgia. We
Yes.
both share YouTube channels and we both share a love for politics. So, a man after my own heart. Real quick, just tell us what you talk about on your YouTube show.
Well, my YouTube channel is Jobs Justice Dreams, and usually post clips from my radio show, People Passing in Politics on News and Talk 1380 WAOK. And it's really a hodgepodge. So during political season, we talk politics. During other times, we talk relationships. We do cooking shows. We do all kinds of things. So I really want to cross the gambit because I think most people are not monolithic, and therefore you have to cover all the bases.
Absolutely. I think your hand may be covering the speaker or the
Okay,
receiver.
there we go.
So I
Is
want to
that
make
better?
sure. Yes, a little bit better. I know you again. He's straight
Okay.
out of an event, guys, and he's a in-demand speaker working in Georgia. And I want to give people a little context. You work for the Peach Tree Street Project for the Rainbow Push Coalition as the executive director. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do in that role?
Certainly. So Reverend Jesse Jackson, as a offshoot of Dr. King's Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, founded the Rainbow Push Coalition. Part of the Rainbow Push Coalition has been founding satellite offices around the country. The Southeast region, I'm the director of. We work on things such as voting rights, economic development, working directly with the state legislature to ensure that we are protecting civil and political rights for individuals across the region, and ensuring that, as Reverend Jackson will say, that we make sure we keep hope alive at all times.
Okay, so we have a lot of work that you have done that is very remarkable from through Rainbow Push, as well as I'm sure many other initiatives that you want to see. But we're not here to talk Rainbow Push tonight. Yes, Doug says he cannot wait to the midterms. Welcome. If you're watching Team Replay, hit the like button. Thank you, RM. Good evening, Gaston's World. Hi, Wonderful 34. And hello to everyone watching. Andrew, thank you so much for watching. So we're talking midterm elections. So I want to ask Attorney Robert Patillo, go first and foremost and check out his YouTube channel. I'm sure you'll find it very interesting. Again, like me, all things politics, but also everyday social events and things that matter in people's lives. So when we're talking about midterm elections, sir, first of all, explain what midterm elections, why do we use that terminology? What are they?
And so when a president is elected, it's called his term. So he has a 4-year term. But 2 years into that term, you have the midterm, halfway through the term elections, because Congress is elected, the entire Congress is elected every 2 years, and one third of the Senate is elected every 2 years. So we have an opportunity right now to replace the entirety of Congress. If we wanted to, we could take everyone out of the House of Representatives and replace them in 4 weeks. And we can take one third of the Senate and replace them in 4 weeks. So that's what's coming up in November, the midterm elections.
So we have halfway through that presidential term, as you say, many people to elect or reelect or really vote for someone else. So as we are talking about what matters, there are some very big nationally covered midterm elections because they, as you said, will determine who sits in the Senate. One third of the Senate is being changed out and reelected. So when we're looking and we're talking about different states, what states are you paying the most attention to?
Well, I think you have really big Senate races taking place in, of course, Pennsylvania, where you have Dr. Oz versus Fetterman. You have Ohio, where you have J.D. Vance versus Tim Ryan. You have Georgia, of course, where we have Raphael Warnock versus Herschel Walker. North Carolina has Cheryl Beasley versus some dude. In Florida, where you have Val Demings versus Marco Rubio. Arizona, you have Mark Kelly versus Masterson. Wisconsin, you have Mandela Barnes versus Ron Johnson. You have some big races across the country. Charles Booker in Kentucky versus Rand Paul, where Democrats have a real chance to pick up those seats.
So we're talking about the Senate, y'all, and hit the like button. If you are in any of the states that Mr. Patillo just mentioned, you definitely need to pay attention because there are so many people that don't really vote in this midterm season. For some reason, we love to vote for president, but we don't show up. People of color, oftentimes, not everybody, young people, oftentimes, not everybody, and other demographics do. So, first of all, why do you think there's so much of a voting gap between midterms and the presidential election year?
Well, I'm going to use a football analogy. So the thing about the president is being quarterback. Everybody knows the quarterback of your football team. Very few people know the offensive line of your football team. That is what the midterm elections are. You are electing your offensive line. So the people who are blocking for your quarterback, the people who are making sure that your running back can find holes, and people who are making sure that you can score points. That is what the midterm elections are. You are electing the Senate, you're electing the House of Representatives. So if you want your quarterback to succeed, you have to give him an offensive line, you have to give him a running back, you have to give him some wide receivers, you have to give him a tight end, and that's what the midterm elections are. During the presidential years, you're picking your quarterback. During the midterms, you are making sure you have an offensive line to protect them.
Wonderful. So there are all these players on the field. I love the analogy, and I've done football coach
Feel
shows.
free to steal that one. Feel free to steal that.
Yeah, exactly. I like it, and it's very easy to understand. We have the president, the quarterback, as Mr. Patillo has eloquently put it, and they have to have the rest of the team, the offensive line, the defensive line, the special teams, and all the other places in which there are leaders that influence policy. So right now, the Senate is 50-50 down the middle, 50 Democrats out of the 100 seats and 50 Republicans, with the vice president right now, whenever that happens per the Constitution, the vice president makes the deciding vote when it's a split down the middle. So right now, technically, Democrats have control because they control the Senate through the vice presidency. So what would happen, or where are some of the best places I think that people are observing where there could be a change from a Democrat to a Republican or a Republican to a Democrat that would affect the overall balance of power in the Senate?
Well, many of the seats that I mentioned. So, for example, Val Demings in Florida, she has the opportunity to unseat Marco Rubio. And so if you unseat Marco Rubio, then that's a plus one for Democrats. In North Carolina, Cheryl Beasley has the opportunity to replace the current incumbent Republican senator who's retiring, and that'd be another seat. The reason this is important is because of the filibuster, you really need 60 votes to get anything done in the United States Senate. So Democrats are working their way towards 60. And because when you get the 60 votes, that's where you can start codifying many of the constitutional protections that are needed. And so when you're looking at Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania running against Fetterman, that can be another Democratic pickup. When you're looking at J.D. Vance versus Tim Ryan, that can be another Democratic pickup. Cory Booker running against Rand Paul, that can be a Democratic pickup. Mandela Barnes versus Ron Johnson, that's a Democratic pickup. And if you do that, you can get to 58, 59, 60 Democratic seats. Well, then that's when we can start talking about reparations. That's when we can have the conversation on codifying Roe versus Wade. That's when we can codify gay marriage. We can codify. You know, interracial marriage is not codified in U.S. law.
No.
It is a Supreme Court decision that can be overturned at any time and probably be overturned in the next election. So if you're in a happy interracial marriage, that can be over in a year if we
Which
do
is
not
crazy to think about.
codify. Yeah, it's one of the things where it's like, how is that an issue in 2022? But
No.
those are the things we are running for, and that's why we have to get that 60 vote majority.
So yeah, so I think so many of the key issues that you mentioned, and again, we've heard a lot about Roe v. Wade, and we'll get to that just momentarily. But overall, there's so many other key issues that are not, people would be surprised, what's really not law. Voting rights is really not law, right? It's a
Yeah.
case that was brought to the Supreme Court, and therefore it was made through jurisprudence. But the fact that Black people can vote is like, I mean, we have the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and you can't discriminate, but there are certain parts of what we're seeing being used to erode the right to vote that is not in law. So people can make all these kind of, arbitrary laws that allow folks to limit how, when, and if people who should be able to vote can vote. You want to comment on that?
Absolutely. I think people have to understand that many things that we consider to be quote unquote rights are things that are judicially created. So when you're talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that is passed on a law, but that will more than likely be overturned in the next year by the
Yeah.
Supreme Court. This is why they took that seat from Merrick Garland. This is why they pushed through Amy Coney Barrett. This is why they try to get that 6-3 majority. If you look at things like voting rights after the Shelby v. Holder decision in 2014, we really don't have a protected voting rights act, but that has to be done legislatively. And so, what is needed is a 60 vote majority in the Senate because only certain things can be passed on a 50-50 basis through reconciliation. And so, because of this, if we actually want to codify many things that we are used to in America and not have this right wing take over the government, is going to take a protected 60 vote majority in the Senate, and that has to happen through this midterm elections.
So that is a very key point I think a lot of people need to understand. So right now, as it stands, the more strong body is the U.S. Senate, 100 people, and then you have the lower house, the lower chamber, which is the U.S. House of Representatives, 435 people spread across. So I sometimes think, what are your thoughts on expanding the House of Representatives to more?
I think it needs to happen. The reason being that if you look at a state like Montana, which has very few people, the percentage of power that those folks have versus a representative from California, where you have a lot of people, is a complete imbalance. And
Yeah.
so the Constitution really never. Think about it, you're just like a white guy in 1789. You weren't
Mhm.
thinking about 2022. You
At
had
all.
no concept of how big the country would be or how diverse it would be. And so, if we really want to make sure that we have a representative democracy, we need to have these type of electoral changes made in order to allow us to
Yeah.
actually have a representative democracy that will represent the majority of American people and not be based on the metrics from, back on King
18.
George. Yeah, when
Exactly.
they challenged the British Empire.
No,
And,
it's true. I don't think our
it,
forefathers, a lot of people think the founding fathers had the idea of what we would, be able to do with, for example, weaponry. Even when we talk about the Second Amendment and things, I don't think they could have pictured a semi-automatic or automatic rifle or gun or weapon that could shoot hundreds of bullets within seconds. When they were doing it, muskets were being still prepared with gunpowder and things like this. So right to bear arms didn't look like as lethal of a proposition as it does now. So, what Attorney Patillo is pointing out, when we have a body like the U.S. House of Representatives that has 435 people, evenly divided among the entire United States, it still leaves some urban centers and places where a lot more people live kind of underrepresented because they have one representative, while Montana or other places where there are almost no people living but still have about the same amount of representation within their state depending on population. It can be very skewed. So yeah, we were talking about whether it should be expanded to have more people so that more of where the people live is based on population is expressed. And I see a couple comments, guys. Attorney Patillo will have to jump off because he is at a conference ready to speak. Love your show, Miss Suzette. But in the words of Malcolm X, if you support the Democrats, you're a chump. Not only are you a chump, you're a traitor to your race. Democrats are the biggest racists. Your opinion. Doug says, so,
let me hop on that one
go ahead, go
because
ahead, go ahead.
when I was at Clark Atlanta University for college, I did a class on the political theory of Malcolm X. And so I'm a little bit of a Malcolm X expert. So we have to talk about the divergence between the Democratic Party of the 1960s versus the Democratic Party of today. The Democratic Party of the 1960s is still the party of Strom Thurmond, of Jesse Helms, of Robert Byrd. And so what happened in the 1960 election was that Malcolm was making the point that we put them first by electing Kennedy, and they put us last. But the problem is that when that speech was made, that was before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That is what Malcolm was talking about. That was before the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That is what Malcolm was talking about. That was before public accommodations in 1967. That was before fair housing. That was before Title VII. That was before Title IX. So many of the critiques that Malcolm actually had during that speech were remedied and were issued nearly a decade thereafter. So when people use that quote, they're basically taking it out of context because they're putting the context where it is now. Because if you look at the other party, as it would be right now, ask yourself right now, would Mitch McConnell vote in favor of the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Would Ted Cruz vote in favor of the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Would Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz vote in favor of public accommodation? Would Herschel Walker vote in favor of the Loving decision or in favor of many of the civil rights legislation and rulings that we've had since then? So you can take anything out of context that you want, but given the context of what the realities are of American public policy now, that is inapropos to what we are living in today.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So when Michael X said that, that was pre a lot of the changes that came through the Democrats being in power, the Civil Rights Act, and all kinds of amendments that were made to accommodate what was a very segregated society. So you have to know that when Michael X said that, it was pre the actual changes that address those things. So you got to be very careful when you're reading quotes. When was it? And put it in context. Doug says, so we're not citizens. Why would they reverse voting rights? That's an easy thing to answer, actually, Doug. That doesn't make any sense. Yes, it does for people who want to stay in power. I hear you, Doug. And you also added something about semi-automatic weapons. Should have the right to have assault weapons. I wasn't saying that we shouldn't. I'm just saying when the law was written, the men back in 17 whatever, our founding fathers had no concept of what arms would look like in the future. So maybe they would have written laws a little bit differently had they understood what kind of advancements we would have when it comes to this type of weaponry. Are you saying that Matt Gaetz is racist or Marjorie Taylor Greene? So we're going to allow him to make a few more comments. Guys, he has a limited amount of time. But yeah, you could go ahead and comment, sir.
Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, absolutely. She's racist. She's a racist person and she does racist things. She literally had a speech this week with Donald Trump where she said, they are coming to take your country, to take what you have, to change who you are. That is racism. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. I think we have to stop being afraid to call out people who are racist. There is no equivalency. You have to make it very clear that for individuals like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Ron Johnson or Herschel Walker, who are absolute dyed-in-the-wool racists, who want nothing good for black people or for brown people in this country, who want to uphold white supremacy, there's nothing wrong with holding those people up to the sunlight and saying that this is where we stand. We will put a line right here and we will not step back from here. And once we are able to do that, that is when we will actually be able to progress as a nation.
Yeah, I think there's so many more points I want you to make, especially with comments that were recently made by Tommy Tuberville, and others. What were your thoughts on that? Because again, people are saying things and it's coming across as if it can be so-called misinterpreted. But I'm just like, he said what he said. And if you look at it, who he was saying it to, what he meant. Go ahead, sir.
When people tell you who they are, believe them the first time, in the words of Maya Angelou. So when someone says, well, Democrats love crime because they want to give reparations to black people, what they're telling you is that black people commit all the crime, and the Democrats are allowing them to do so they can collect their reparations. That is a very, very racist thing to say. When Marjorie Taylor Greene says these people are trying to steal your culture, steal your society, steal your country, That's a very, very racist thing to say. There's nothing wrong with calling that out. We have to stop pretending that these people are anything other than a modern day Bill Connor. Ask these folks, would you vote in favor of civil rights Act of 1964? Would you vote in favor of the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Do you believe in the 13th Amendment? Because in reality, once you hold their feet to the fire, you will realize these are nothing but modern day neo Confederates who want to take us back. When they say that we will not go back, we want to take our country back, what they're saying is they want to take their country back to a point in time when people like you and I were only allowed to, work in kitchens and sweep the floor and those sorts of things. They don't like people like Barack Obama. They don't like people who have education and the ability to stand up to them. They want to go to the grand old party days of them being in charge and us only being on sweep floors.
So yeah, there's some realities, guys, that we have to really face, and it's very uncomfortable sometimes to have to address them, but we have to call it out. We do have to say this person is not displaying the type of moral compass because that we need in a leader. And if they're only going to be favoring policies that are, basically they're calling out one group of people and saying we're going to put things into power that will help you only, and we're going to make sure to marginalize or kind of disenfranchise other people, we got to call it out because it's not American. Yes, Links. Mr. Patillo is a fellow ATLian. Of course he is, representing for ATL. I want to ask you about your race now that we're talking about Georgia when it comes to, or the Senate race in your state, when it comes to Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. When I read some of the stories about Mr. Walker, I want to know what's going on the ground. Honestly, when I hear the stories about whether I think the lady who has not come forward, but the person who was alleging that he had paid for her to terminate a pregnancy and that he wanted her to terminate a second pregnancy, and that his actual political stance is one publicly while he's running for office that he supports a ban for all terminations of pregnancy from without any exception. What are people saying on the ground? I'm like, does he really have a chance to win? And I know it's close in the polls. What are you seeing, and can you prognosticate?
He absolutely has a chance to win. And myself, as a pro-life Democrat, I am fervently pro-life. I am a deeply rooted Southern Christian conservative Democrat, and I believe in the concept of life. But Herschel Walker, this is how much America does not care about women. Herschel Walker has been beating women for 40 years. Literally since the time he was a student at the University of Georgia, when he was a football player, he was accused of beating a woman that he dated. In the early 1990s, he held a gun to his wife's head. He held a razor blade to a woman's throat. He pushed a pregnant woman down a flight of stairs. And he stalked a woman in 2002. He stalked another woman in 2012. And nobody cared on the Republican side of the aisle. The Family Values Party, the party that believes in God and Christ, and the party that believes in the sanctity of life, did not care that he pushed a pregnant woman down a flight of stairs because she wanted to have a child that he did not want to have. So when you tell me that you are against abortion, you have to tell me that you are against a dude who pushes a woman down a flight of stairs, that pays for a woman to have an abortion, that tries to pressure her into having another one. So what is being laid there right now is that Republicans care a lot more about control of the U.S. Senate, about being able to pass tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires and cut regulations for corporations. That's what they actually care about. So does Herschel Walker have a chance to win? Absolutely. Because a big chunk of this state and a big chunk of this country not only doesn't care about women, but hate women. And the fact that you have women not standing up against that is one of the most abhorrent things of this political cycle.
It is something to really witness the unraveling, I believe, of a campaign that was ultimately very flawed to begin with. And it goes back to, why do you pick candidates in the first place to run if they come with a lot of baggage, as some would call it, and whether or not it doesn't even matter. It depends on your party. The baggage won't count. We want to win the Senate. But then again, for others, it seems like a double standard. Well, they are unfaithful to their wife, or they are this, or they have a lot of other moralistic challenges.
One of the issues I found is kind of I saw it earlier. I was thinking this link where somebody was saying that this is kind of yada, yada, yada. If someone pushing a pregnant woman down a flight of stairs to disqualify you from U.S. politics, So Herschel Walker's son, Christian, said that him and his mother had to move 6 times in 6 months because they were scared of Herschel Walker finding them because he was going to murder them. That seems like something that should disqualify you from U.S. politics. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent or anything else. If somebody has a history, a 40-year history of beating women, of threatening to murder women, how the hell can you put them in the Senate to vote on women's reproductive rights? And I'm pro-life. That is the issue. I'm pro Second Amendment. I love my guns. I'm a big fan of them. I got more of them than anybody that you know. But I'm not going to vote for Herschel Walker, somebody who's a known woman beater. Do you know why? Because he will take one of those guns and kill somebody. And we have to start having a politics where there is a bottom. There has to be an actual bottom to our politics where we say, no, you are not allowed to be in this club. You're not allowed to be in the Senate. You are such an abhorrent person that we need to make a actual bottom to our politics where we say this cannot go forward.
Absolutely. I think most people, again, they if they only knew the power that they were letting into the halls of power, they would be much more careful and less apathetic when it came to
Mhm.
midterm elections. When you think about how money is being spent, I'm talking about the United States has $1 trillion budget, and who gets to get the contracts at the highest dollar amounts in the federal government, and where money is distributed to the states and what programs are funded. When we really think about how much influence the senator, especially the Senate seat, each and every Senate seat in our country has, and also our Congress folks, it is really mind boggling that most of us stay home. Most of us don't come out
Mhm.
and vote for these people that have so much power at the end of the day to direct our government and its resources. So we really got to think about who we're putting in and holistically really evaluate what and who we believe is a qualified candidate, as Mr. Patillo has said. Now, I'm going to end with something very light. I know they have been pushing celebrities to kind of put their names in the hat for president and things like this. And Dwayne The Rock Johnson's name always comes up, or in the last few years has been coming up, as well as some others. Do you think there's a possibility that in the near future we would have some celebrity who has no political experience in the White House? And if so, how do you think it will impact that person and their leadership?
Well, if it makes you feel better, the first president of the United States, George Washington, was a celebrity who had no experience, and he was elected president. And he did little to nothing as president because he had no idea what he was doing. Ronald Reagan was a Hollywood movie star. Gil Scott Heron has a song where he talks about B movie, saying that America wanted John Wayne, but they got the knockoff B movie version being Ronald Reagan. And similar Donald Trump, at the time that Putin, being a former KGB agent, was killing his political opponents, Donald Trump was firing Meatloaf off of The Apprentice, and
Hmm.
that was the president. So in reality, that's always been the way it is, and this is why we have a divided government. This is why we have a Supreme Court, why we have Congress. So that just in case you elect an idiot as president, you have a Congress that's able to stop him and a Supreme Court is able to stop him. And this is why these midterm elections are so important. So, on the off chance that we elect another idiot to be the president of the United States, that we'll have a Congress that will be able to stop them from doing their most negative influences.
Okay, thank you, Lord, that we had at least some checks and balances where we didn't have someone who would come in and wreck the entire government. The United States will survive, hopefully, many of these kind of non-traditional candidates, because it seems like people are tired of politics as usual, so they are gravitating towards someone who's a celebrity, someone who's an actor, someone who has Tom Hanks. Hear his name thrown out, and other people who seem to, at least on screen, have these kind of more loving and compassionate and empathetic ethos, and therefore would make a better politician and not be, seeking fame or seeking other things that a lot of people seem to go into office for. They would have hopefully the heart for the people, but we'll see if the American people really have an appetite for folks who are cool or popular as opposed to having a lot more experience. So, can I allow you now to give us your picks in the states that are up, or if you have any opinion on who you are? I don't want to kind of tie you to it, or no bets, of course, but um,
Well,
Who do you think will come out victorious in the various races that we've mentioned?
Well, we got 4 weeks ago, and a big chunk of it was going to be dependent on what the president does. I thought that the marijuana announcement was good. Student loan announcement was good. I think you have to do something on voter rights and criminal justice reform. And predicated on those things happening before the midterm election, I think you have a great chance of Raphael Warnock beating Herschel Walker. I think Dr. Oz will be lose to John Fetterman. In an upset, I think that Tim Ryan will beat J.D. Vance in Ohio. Uh, Sherry Beasley has a very tough race. I believe in the toss-up column. Val Demings has a very tough race. I think we'll probably go to Rubio. I do think that Mandela Barnes will beat Ron Johnson. I do think that as a last pick, I think that more than likely Rand Paul will beat Charles Booker, but that's still a toss-up race.
All right, we got his handicap, y'all. We understand where hopefully you guys will be more active or hopefully more motivated to go out and vote, because now we understand where these key playing Senate races will be, Congress races will be, and it's very important that we stay involved, pay attention, and most importantly, vote. I know we're out of time. I want to thank Mr. Robert Patillo. I hope this won't be the last time, sir, that you can come on my show.
Anytime. I gave you from my radio show too.
Oh, yay! We can talk politics all day long, y'all. Please check out his channel. Let me put up it one more time. We talked about the midterm elections again. Find out who's running where you live locally, and find out who's running for judge, who's running for mayor, who's running for school board, who's running for commissioner, city commission, county commission, parish commission, whatever you have, and vote. Again, I want to thank my special guest, YouTuber, political analyst, civil rights attorney, commenter, speech giver, all kinds of accolades. I could go on, and the executive director of the Peachtree Street Project of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the Southeastern United States. I want to thank him so much for spending some time here on the SuzetteSpeaks show. We got to make sure we do this again. Check out his channel, Jobs, Justice, and Dreams. I appreciate you coming on tonight. You have a good one. Look forward to having you back on. Thank you, Robert. A pleasure. Thank you, guys. So a little bit of political talk tonight. I really want you guys to stay focused, be active, check out what's happening where you live. The midterm elections are upon us, 1 month away. As he said, with a lot of the things that the president does, as he mentioned, the loan forgiveness, as well as the way he just did was forgiving people with low-level marijuana possessions at the federal level, allowed them to be forgiven, or their sentences to be commuted. I think that made headlines, and some other things that President Biden is doing will also impact, hopefully, our wallets and things that are happening on the local level, and therefore maybe have an impact on what's happening in the midterm elections. So if you have not voted, I know today in Florida, for example, was the last day to register to vote. I think you might be able to send it in if it's postmarked. But go ahead and check where you live. Are you registered? Do you accurately have your address? Your signature must match, of course, and other parts of your voting requirements. Oftentimes people don't, update where they live, or they had an apartment or whatever. So many rules now exist that keep us from voting that we have to make sure we stay on top of it. So if you recently moved, or if you switch party, or if you want to vote by mail and things like that, pay attention to those deadlines, because we are just about a month away, less than the midterm elections that will come up, which will determine who will have the control of the Senate and control of the House. And there are also opportunities, I think, for a lot of balances of power to be shifted. So don't think it's in the bag. What you do is going to have a deep impact on what the country looks like. So please be sure to register to vote. Hit the like button on your way out. I think I might do a quick preview to a trip I'm having. I'm going to New Orleans tomorrow. So I'm going to come back on right now live. I know you guys are probably super busy, but I'm going to do a couple of previews to some stuff I'll be doing there, and I'll be sharing with you in just a moment. Thank you again for watching, and thank you again to Mr. Patillo. Why the midterms matter. Have a good one, and I'll see you back here shortly. Take care. Hit the like button.